Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so excited about my guest today because we're going to be talking about something that is a fabulous way for people to get to know you and what you do. And so many people don't do it. So please join me in welcoming Melanie Herschorn to our program today. Welcome, Melanie. How are you doing?
Hi, Deb. Thanks so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. You are just fantastic.
Well, thank you so much. Mutual admiration society going on, right? We're going to have a great conversation. So let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So known for helping attorneys and professionals become best-selling authors and get positioned as experts in their practice area, Melanie Herschorn wants to help you step into your spotlight as an authority. As a publisher and book marketing strategist and founder of Big Impact Books, she's on a mission to empower new authors to make an impact and grow their income with their signature book. With her comprehensive background of over 20 years as a celebrity publicist, award-winning journalist in radio, print, and TV, as well as a clothing designer and entrepreneur, I had so much fun reading your LinkedIn profile. Melanie is uniquely positioned to support authors to step into thought leadership and make a big impact with their book. She earned a master's degree in journalism from the University of Southern California, where she graduated first in her class. Whoa. Melanie grew up in Canada and has lived in both the U.S. coasts and now resides in Arizona with her husband, daughter, and son, and her dog, Marty, and her cat, Phoebe. Her award-winning book, Make a Big Impact with Your Book, is now available. And of course, we will have a link to it in the show notes. So again, Melanie, welcome.
Thank you, Deb. I feel like when you read that, I keep thinking, wow, I did that. Oh, I did that too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny when you listen to your own bio. And I tell this to clients because so often we don't see what makes us unique and special.
Right.
And we think, well, I did something, but who's really going to care about that? But
and of
the
course,
truth is,
as women, we really don't tell the world what we've been up to.
no, that's for sure. So thanks for sharing my bio.
Well, it was lovely. And we're going to have a great discussion about several of the topics in it. But you've obviously had quite the background. So tell us a little bit more about how it is that you got to where you are today.
Sure. So strap in and get ready for a very circuitous journey. You know what they say when you're on a roller coaster, keep your arms and legs inside the train at all times.
Don't lean out.
Don't lean out. Don't stand up. Okay. So we know that I started out in celebrity PR. It was a really great foundational piece for me. But what I found was, as much as I love watching celebrities and doing all the things, I don't particularly love working with some of them because, you know, they don't necessarily treat the help as well as they could.
You might have a tood, right?
It's just a little, yeah. And so one particular celebrity told me off on my birthday twice, and I said, okay, that is all I need. I am finishing this job, and I'm going to do something else. And so that's when I applied and got started with journalism. I got my master's, and then I moved from LA to Central Pennsylvania. Which
no celebrities there.
No, not usually. No. So when I got there, I became I got a job and I was an afternoon news anchor and reporter on the local NPR affiliate. So it was really special to be able to utilize everything I'd learned and actually put
Right.
it into
Hmm.
practice.
Hmm.
Now, the thing about being on the radio in a place you couldn't find on a map before you moved there
Hmm.
is that there's this steep learning curve.
Hmm.
So I had to learn everything about Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And so I still know so much about Pennsylvania. I haven't lived there in over 13 years, but it
Hmm.
doesn't matter because
Hmm.
it is in my heart.
Right.
I
Well, and especially
love that
working for
state.
NPR. Hmm.
Yeah, I love that state
Hmm.
so much and all its ridiculousness. It's just the people there are wonderful. I have
Hmm.
such great
Hmm.
things to say. So I enjoyed the job. It was wonderful. And I plan to have a baby in a non-election year
Hmm.
because I was the only female in an all-male newsroom
Right.
and I didn't want to, they always use these
Hmm.
weird similes or it's like a ship, so you don't want to
Hmm.
jump ship and all that
Right.
stuff. So
Hmm. Hmm.
so I planned to have a baby and I got pregnant,
Hmm.
thankfully. So as I was just heading into the fifth month of
Hmm.
pregnancy, still like really nauseous every
Hmm.
single day,
Hmm.
but powering through and
Right.
getting on
Right.
the
And you were on
radio.
the radio. Hmm.
Yeah, so you know what they say, I had a face for radio and
And a body for it at that point in time.
especially,
Hmm.
gosh, one time I had a nosebleed while I was giving the news, like, but you
Oh
can't see it
no.
because it's
Right.
radio.
Right. Hmm.
So I'd be like throwing up in the corner and then
Hmm.
continue.
Hmm.
So I got laid off.
Hmm. Oh no.
They called me in and they said, "We are terminating you." And I went, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
And they
Now
sent me
what?
home. Now
Hmm.
what? They sent me
Hmm.
home. I continued to work there for another 2 months, and I still did things
Uh-huh.
that they didn't let me on live anymore because they didn't trust me not to say something bad on the air, which I would
Uh-huh.
never would have done in
Right.
a
And you
million
never
years.
had to
Never
date.
would.
So yeah. Hmm.
Never would have done that, but they'd had bad experiences, and I understand.
Hmm.
But they let
Hmm.
me do pre-recorded things,
Huh.
so
Hmm.
so I continued. I'd been doing this really
Hmm.
wonderful series on some important people in the area, and
Hmm.
so I got to
Hmm.
continue those interviews and stuff. But I came home that day, and I pulled into my driveway, and I had a neighbor who was standing outside. I was in
Hmm.
this adorable community of like young families,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I walked up to her. I barely knew her, and I just burst out crying on her shoulder.
Oh.
And I said, "I'm unemployed and I'm unemployable.
Hmm. Hmm.
Who's going to employ a 5 month pregnant
Right.
woman?"
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, I got a call from the local newspaper's managing editor,
Ah.
and
Who
she
knew you
said,
did good work?
I guess she did.
Hmm.
She
Hmm.
said, "Hey, do you want to come freelance for us?" And I said, "But Kate, I'm pregnant." And she said, "I don't care."
Yeah. So you can still type.
I covered events up until a week before I gave birth.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
And then I started
Hmm.
covering events the
Hmm.
minute my kid was 3 months old, and
Hmm.
I was bored. I
You
desperately
needed to talk
needed
to adults.
adults. So it was, I look back on that time
Mhm.
very fondly.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but we were moving for my
Right.
husband's job
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
Arizona where we are now.
Mhm.
And when we got here, I thought, well, I have an 8 month old. Do I
Mhm.
really want to leave her in daycare?
Mhm.
Do I want to get a nanny?
Mhm.
As a journalist, I'm going to make less money than I would be
Right.
paying the nanny.
Mhm.
So I had an idea to do something completely different,
Mhm.
and it was to design and manufacture breastfeeding clothing,
Oh, okay. Mhm.
which now, looking back in the rear view, I'm like, wow, that sounds crazy and out of left field, but
Mhm.
it was just so normal.
Mhm.
I'd always wanted to be a fashion
Right.
designer.
And you
And I
were the perfect experienced person.
and I was go yeah, and
Mhm.
thank you.
Mhm.
And I had a baby and I had
Mhm.
nothing to wear and
Mhm.
she didn't take a bottle. So I was
Mhm.
like, if I didn't nurse her, she wasn't
Right.
eating.
Mhm.
And so and so I did that and it
Mhm.
was amazing and such a steep learning curve
Mhm.
but I did it and I'm so proud. I was so proud.
Mhm.
I sold my clothes on Nordstrom.com.
Wow. That's
And
incredible. Mm-hmm.
thank you. And on Amazon and in boutiques.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
So in the seventh year of business,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny, funny, not funny. I should have stayed away from celebrity culture, but
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't resist.
Mm-hmm.
And this person that I knew who had been helping in celebrity culture
Mm-hmm.
was now helping in the baby industry and
Mm-hmm.
marketing. And she said, you need to hire me because I'm going to help you with your marketing. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, she knows people,
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
happy to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the beginning of the end of my business. She belittled me daily.
Oh no.
I feared for the state of my business because
Mm-hmm.
I thought, if I speak up for myself, she's going to do
She's
a
going to
smear
destroy
camp.
it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, my husband would say, well, you're paying her. And I say, I know that, but,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and, the writing was on the wall. It was time to close the business. Not more than that, even what was happening is that millennial moms were choosing not to purchase nursing wear as much as they were just going to fast fashion, getting a
Mm-hmm.
couple sizes too large, ripping the
Right.
clothes and throwing them in
Mm-hmm.
the trash.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
People do whatever they want, but
Mm-hmm.
it was time to close the
Mm-hmm.
business. But I was also a shell of my former self because I
Mm-hmm.
had been belittled
Right.
so
Mm-hmm.
much. So I took a few weeks, not long, to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I sort of looked at the through line in my career and I thought, I just want to help people get their message out in the world,
Mm-hmm.
show people that they're important.
Right.
And so I thought, well, I've done marketing. I've been
Mm-hmm.
doing marketing in one way
Mm-hmm.
or another for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I try doing marketing?
Uh-huh.
And when I sort of hung out the proverbial shingle,
Mm-hmm.
authors started to call and say, hey,
Ah.
can you help me with my marketing? And I went,
Okay.
of course I can help you
Of
with your
course.
marketing.
Yes.
Of course
Mm-hmm.
I can. That's not rocket
Mm-hmm.
science. I can figure that
Mm-hmm.
out. So I did. And I originally was helping people with their marketing
Mm-hmm.
only for their books.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a not great experience when trying to publish my first book,
Mm-hmm.
which is the one that you referenced
Mm-hmm.
in the bio, Make a
Mm-hmm.
Big Impact with Your Book.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was I had hired a hybrid publisher. And
Mm-hmm.
just for anybody listening, I'll give you the three types of publishers.
Mm-hmm.
There's the traditional publisher, like the
Right.
big New
Brand
York
McNally,
guys.
what you call it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
who pay you an
Mm-hmm.
advance
Mm-hmm.
and then all the things, right?
Right.
So that's
And you got to be
traditional.
James Patterson to get their attention.
Pretty much, yeah. And then there's the hybrid publisher
Mm-hmm.
where you pay the publisher. They
Okay.
do pretty much the same stuff as the
Mm-hmm.
traditional publisher,
Okay.
only they're not paying you.
Okay.
And then there's the kind of publishing that I do,
Mm-hmm.
which is independent publishing,
Mm-hmm. Right.
where it's basically you're paying me for the service, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking any of your intellectual
Mm-hmm.
property. I don't want any
Right.
royalties. I just
Mm-hmm.
want to make you a star.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's independent publishing. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically like the idea of self-publishing because
Mm-hmm.
it's under your own
Right.
imprint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But
Okay.
you're
So
not alone.
no, we're doing it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that just wanted to give that little,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
aside.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
speaking legalese, so to speak, to
Mm-hmm.
people. So when I hired this hybrid publisher to
Mm-hmm.
do my book,
Mm-hmm.
I was having these sort of red flags,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought, I don't know how to do this. I need her.
Mm-hmm.
I just need
She's
her.
the expert.
She's the expert.
Mm-hmm.
And so one night I was reading my Kindle, which I do every night before bed,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what book I was reading, but I remember getting to the bottom of the page and realizing that I hadn't read a single word.
Ah.
And I went, okay, what's going on, Melanie?
Mm-hmm.
There's something on your
Mm-hmm.
mind,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know what it was. So I put the Kindle down and I went, okay, what is it? And I
Mm-hmm.
realized I didn't trust her.
Mm-hmm.
I did not
Mm-hmm.
trust her, and I needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And the next morning, I emailed her and I said, I'm going to be pulling my book.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't ask for the money back. I
You just wanted to be done. Mm-hmm.
just needed a clean
Mm-hmm.
break. And so I published my own book.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went, oh, I could do this for other people
This
too.
worked. Mm-hmm.
It worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I can help them write a book
Mm-hmm.
that is sellable,
Right.
as opposed to what was sometimes coming to me, which
Mm-hmm.
was I published a book. I don't know if it's any good. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
read it and I'd be like,
Eh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that is what I do then. That
I
is how I
love
got
it.
to where I am.
I love it. And it's amazing when we look at our stories, right? Like we were saying, with your bio, because everything does kind of somehow tie together. And I love that you have had this journey because you've learned something at every stop along the way. And so that's what is so fascinating about it. So, you as I said in the bio, you focus on attorneys and financial people. Now, I'm a marketing person and I tell people niche people. So how did you decide that was primarily who you were going to work with?
Well, as much as I love Instagram coaches,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And often their message doesn't get a chance to stand out.
Right.
And so I wanted to work with a population of people who have a message that
Mm-hmm.
most of us don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So it happened that a family member of mine was going through a super messy divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And the results of the divorce were the exact opposite of what I thought would happen from all my years watching Law and Order and The
Mm-hmm.
Young and the Restless. When
Right.
when
Mm-hmm.
everything turns out like it's supposed
Mm-hmm.
to, right?
Unless you're
Because
Catherine Chancellor, right? Mm-hmm.
may she rest in peace.
I know. Mm-hmm.
That was a really good one, Deb. I love that. Thank you for pulling that out of
Mm-hmm.
I had
Out of
to-
thin air.
out of
Mm-hmm.
thin air.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, I went, okay, so if I don't know this, because I
Mm-hmm.
like to think I'm pretty well
Mm-hmm.
read, then who else doesn't know this
Right.
stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing some market
Mm-hmm.
research.
Mm-hmm.
And I started talking to attorneys
Mm-hmm.
and finding out that there were so many things that
Mm-hmm.
we as lay people have
Mm-hmm.
misconceptions about
Right.
that nobody's explaining.
Mm-hmm.
And so it started to gel in my mind that what if I could help bridge that
Mm-hmm.
gap
Right.
of
Right.
understanding?
Because it's going to
And
help everybody.
it does. It
Mm-hmm.
helps
Mm-hmm.
everybody because then the attorneys, because there's like a dearth of
Mm-hmm.
lawyers. Like there are not
Mm-hmm.
enough lawyers
Right.
per capita.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to help attorneys
Mm-hmm.
get clients
Mm-hmm.
and also help their potential
Mm-hmm.
clients understand what
Right.
on earth
Mm-hmm.
is expected or to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
expect, then I'm doing something good in this
Mm-hmm.
world.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's one of those things where there's a certain level of people, doctors, lawyers, and financial people are the ones that I think of the most, where when we go to them, we don't ask questions. And part of it is, that's they are truly the experts. We have no idea. They're going to think we're stupid, all of these things. And so I love that you can boil their expertise down into something that then everybody understands. And so, like we said, then the whole thing works better because they're not speaking a different language to me. I know what questions to ask. I know what expectations might be coming out, all of those various things.
Absolutely. And it's, I think that because people don't think I'm necessarily not well read or dumb, that I don't understand, when something is confusing to
Mm-hmm.
me, I believe that it's going to be confusing to everybody.
Right. Yeah.
And I
If
don't
one
mind
person has a question, other people have questions.
right. And I don't mind saying, I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please explain it
Mm-hmm.
again?
Right. Right. And more importantly, and this may go with all of your background, you shouldn't be ridiculed for asking that. You shouldn't be made to feel stupid. All of those various things because you're paying them.
Yes, a lesson I had to learn the hard way.
Right. But we're very hesitant because they are, and I'm putting this in my air quotes, the experts. And same thing happens with like a plumber or, like my husband is off getting his car work done and he's like, they said it needs this extra part. I don't even know what it is. Right.
But am I going to argue with them? No.
Yeah. And, but yeah, so we tend to just give them blind faith.
Yes.
But then it's, if they're reputable, which the vast majority are, that's not going to serve them either, because if we didn't ask the right questions, they're not going to give us the right results.
That's right. And it is about that deferring. We're deferring to experts without having a basic understanding of what they're supposed to do. And then if we can't provide the information, then nothing happens. I mean, I think about how many people don't advocate for themselves with doctors.
Right. Right. That's one of the things that I am working with people on, is how to advocate for themselves. And, with a doctor. And it's funny, a lot of it goes back to my father, who passed away. Oh, it's been 15-ish years. And well, thank you. He lived a very long, very full life. So, that was, but my mom was gone. She was off flitting around somewhere. And I went up and to where they lived in Colorado, and he had a doctor's appointment. Now, mind you, this doctor was 4 years older than me. I had known him my entire life. He was best friends with my best friend's brother. I mean, all this stuff. And so, I didn't call him doctor. He was Mike, right? And so Dad had two things he was going to go see Mike about. And he comes back, and I said, "So, Dad, what did he say?" "Oh, well, he said such and such and so and so." And I said, "Well, what did he say about the other thing?" "Well, we didn't talk about it." I said, "What do you mean you didn't talk about it?" And he said, "He's the doctor. He should have known." So I go in and I pick up the phone, and this was long enough ago that these were these things with cords on them that were attached to the wall. And I called and I said, "Mike, he and I are coming back." But yeah, Dad, but how many people do that? It is that deference where not that we're expecting them to read our minds, but kind of we are, right?
And it gets people into trouble. I will share a story. My grandma is 100.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
And she's my ride or die. I just love her so much. But she was ill about a month ago. And my family members that are tasked with watching her trusted friends, family friends who are doctors, to come and check her out.
Right.
And they said, "Oh, she's fine."
Yes, because she told them she was fine.
She was not even verbalizing how she felt at this point. And I was on a family trip on a cruise in the middle of Mexico on the phone when I got service, raising my voice to these family members that she needs to be seen by a doctor. And what I noticed was that deferential behavior again. Well, so-and-so said she's fine.
Right.
Well, and
she looks fine. She's,
looks fine. We listened to her lungs. P.S. She had pneumonia and COVID.
Oh, no. So she was wheezing a bit, Adam.
She was very, very ill. And if I hadn't raised the roof and demanded that people take blood work and all these things and get her to the hospital, it would have not been good. She would not have survived.
Right.
Now she's back home.
Of course.
And, living her best life that you can at 100. However, for me, it was very poignant because so much of medicine, and this may be a controversial opinion because I am not a doctor, but I have a family of doctors. So much of medicine is really just about logic. And if you don't have logic, then you're going to miss things.
Right.
So all that to say, we'll try and bring it back around. We'll bring it back around. When you are deferring to an expert, you still need to have some knowledge.
Right.
And to like you said, be able to advocate for yourself, have some, and if you don't feel comfortable doing it, have somebody who you trust to do it for you.
Right. And again, it helps that professional when you are asking the right questions. Divorce, good example. If you don't tell them I own 5 yachts and 8 bank accounts, they're, now they might be able to run a check and find that. But But yeah, there's all sorts of things where if you don't tell them, they're not going to figure it in. And of course, in something like a divorce, the other side will say what's going on. And so yeah, it's going to help everybody. And I think that's what so many people don't understand is a book is such an easy way, and I'm using that word specifically, an easy way to get that knowledge out there. So I'm going to ask you the first thing that probably everybody said, but Melanie, it's hard. Did I get the right tone in there?
Yes, it's perfect. And that wasn't even a question, but
I
I
know.
understand what's implied.
Yes. Okay.
So
it's hard. There, I made it.
Thank you. Yes, you did an up at the end.
Yes.
So I make it simple. I meet with people once a week and they talk the book out to me in an hour a week. So because of my journalism background, I know the questions to ask.
You're interviewing them.
I'm interviewing them. We've outlined the book and then I take the transcription and I put it into the right order and then we develop a book in an hour a week.
I love it. And then now here's the next whiny question. But who cares? Why would somebody want to read a book that I wrote?
Well, let me ask you this. Who do you serve?
And if people can't answer that, there's a totally different question or different problem.
Right. And they shouldn't be writing a book.
Right.
Not everybody needs to write a book. But if you have people that you serve and you know that you can serve them better by having pre-answered questions, by having your bio written in a way that shows them they can know you, like you, trust you.
Right. Just exactly like your bio was.
Then that's what this book will do for you. It's a tool to continue to grow your business in perpetuity. Because every time somebody picks that up, and even honestly, Deb, even if they don't read the book, but it's just sitting on their desk.
Right. That's immediate
touch point.
Yes. You're like, ooh, you wrote a book.
Yeah. And it's just, you're a marketer, you know this. It used to be 7 touch points and now it's like 20 touch points at least. So imagine if every single day they look down at your book and then they look back at it's by osmosis getting in there. And when it's time for them to hire you for what you do, they will think of you.
Right. And it is instant credibility, right? Because, you might be thinking about 10 attorneys that you're going to work with. And if one of them has a book, that they immediately are going to go up on the list of at least I need to check them out a little bit further.
Absolutely. And even, if we go and we think about it as simplistically as a calling card or the best business card ever.
Right.
So the statistics about business cards, and now I've looked these up recently. It's something like 88% of all business cards are thrown out within the first 7 days.
Oh, yeah. They don't even make it home. Or to the office.
Right. And so if somebody doesn't need exactly what you do at exactly that time, they're not going to remember that they know you when they really do need your help. But if you had written a book and given it to them, they would.
Yeah. They're going to see it on their shelf, or wherever they have it. And yeah, it's funny. I went to a networking thing one time and this woman rushes up to a group of us and like deals out her deck of cards, and it's
like a staple gun.
Yeah. And then she starts to leave and we're like, wait, and we said, what the heck? And she said, we were PR people, right? So we were floored at her response. I bet my husband I couldn't give away all of my business cards. And of course, every one of us turned around and went, book, right? I couldn't have told you 5 minutes afterwards what she had, what she did, her name, any of that. And now let's really be honest. Do we still even have business cards? Because I think we all know we don't keep them. We don't look at them, or we put them in those weird little folder things and they go on the shelf somewhere and we never look at it again. But yeah, a book, somebody is remembering, hey, there's this information.
And they can open it up and look through it and get to know you on a deeper level.
Right. they can loan it to somebody, hey, you heard you're looking for the, and all of those things. And yeah, I mean, what people don't understand, and what you do is it is a marketing piece. It's what you were saying at the very start.
That's exactly it. So that's why I fully believe that a book in and of itself doesn't do anything.
Right.
It's like having a beautiful car in your driveway, but not ever putting gas in it.
Right.
It's not going to go. But when you pair it with a marketing plan, then that is where the magic is.
Right.
So that's why we do it all. We help write, we do the publishing, and then we also prepare a marketing plan,
right,
which we pitch people to podcasts, just like this amazing one.
Right. Voila.
Voila. Yes. So meta. And we also do a PR campaign in that we're sending a press release out to the media. We're also doing a bestseller campaign on Amazon so that ostensibly people can become a best-selling author. So it's all these little pieces add up to big pieces when you use your tool, which is your book.
Right. And so now I'm going to ask my last whiny question. But Melanie, doesn't it cost a lot?
I mean, yeah, but you could get it done for super cheap if you want it done badly.
Right.
That's easy. Yeah, anybody will sell you a bill of goods if you like, some snake oil.
Or if you
on
really
the
try
side.
and do it yourself, like you said. I mean, it's,
Yeah, you could absolutely do it yourself. It could take years.
If it
But
ever
that's
gets
up to you.
done.
Well, right, that those statistics aren't great
Right.
either. Or you could have skin in the game.
Right.
And know that not only are you getting a book, but you're getting a marketing plan that's
Right.
implemented for you.
Right. And there is, it's kind of like the book is establishing somebody as an expert. It pays to hire the expert. I'm working on a new business initiative, and I can do branding. I can do websites. I can do all of those things. I have hired somebody to do that. And was it cheap? No. But like you said, you get what you paid for. But more importantly, first of all, it gets done, because it would be the cobbler's kids, right? I might work on it, I might not. And more, and it gets done better, probably, than what I would do, which is kind of a hard thing to admit, right? But yeah, to me, it was worth it to get it done, to pay somebody to do it.
Absolutely. Because then it is going to be done and done well and done on time. Because for a book, for example, is the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, if you, depending on how much you get, you charge per client, let's say you charge $1,000 per client. So you get, a bunch of new clients and then you've paid back the book.
Right. But there is the opposite, where people think, I have a book, therefore I'm going to become a millionaire, which is right where it comes in to have that marketing plan, all of those things. It's nice that, now we can have books published on demand.
Yes.
And, I remember working with somebody years ago in my career. She had the 30,000 books in her garage, and she shipped herself, all of this stuff. And as far as I know, she's still probably got 25,000 of them. And but yeah, it is so easy anymore. Now, you still need physical copies. You're at a networking event and you need to hand them a book. You don't want to hand them, if you're talking about your book, you need to hand them your book, and things like that. So you still need some physical copies, but it has gotten so much easier.
Definitely. And you don't have to have a box of books sitting in your garage collecting dust. Because like you said, you can order print on demand.
Right.
You can get as few as one if you want. And when you think about it, I just want to say, book sales are not going to make people rich.
Right.
So that's the first thing. Every time I sell a book, I get $8. So I could treat myself to a cup of coffee.
Yay. And that's, before prices change next week.
Right. Right. So all that to say, it's really about how you leverage the book.
Right.
And don't anticipate that, I'm going to sell 1 million copies and I'm going to be rich just sitting there sipping my Mai Tais. It's not quite like that.
Right. it's exactly what you're saying. There's so many things that you can do with a book. I talk with a lot of people and know a lot of people who are public speakers, professional speakers, right? And so, what's really good is they give their presentation to the multitudes, and then in the back, there's the table with somebody selling their book. I came across a picture of myself on Facebook the other day. I had posted, it popped up in the memories. I'm at an event with Bob Berg, and oh, I know, don't we love Bob? And I tell you, he is one of the nicest, sweetest people ever. But I'm the person at the table selling his book. I just found that picture. I was like, well, this is funny. But yeah, and so even if you're a speaker and you're not, the people who can pull in a large number of dollar amount for a speaker fee, you might say, okay, I'm not going to charge you that much, but I am going to sell my book. And you might actually earn more from selling the book.
Absolutely. You can sell it at the retail price. You can also ask the people putting on the event to buy the book from you.
Buy it in advance so that everyone has a copy.
Right, exactly. And even if you sell it at wholesale, you are still going to make a lot of money.
Right. And that's where you can put a little flyer in that is specifically to the event. All of those things. Again, it is a marketing tool.
I love how your brain works. Dad.
Hey, even on late on a Friday as we're recording this. Now, there's also one of the other things you can do with it, because we're all on social, right? I'm actually only on LinkedIn and Facebook because I am the person that if I went to TikTok and Instagram, I'd be there watching cat videos all day.
I love kitties.
I know. I have two. You have Phoebe. And so, but yeah, the nice thing about a book is there's content for social media. So explain that to us a little bit.
Okay, it is so simple to repurpose the entire book for your social media. And, when I wrote my book, ChatGPT wasn't a thing yet.
Right.
You could literally upload a page of your book and ask ChatGPT to repurpose that book into, 10 captions.
Right.
Boom. It takes you 5 minutes to come up with 2 weeks worth of social media captions.
Right.
And so it's really about taking what you have and never reinventing the wheel.
Right. It's funny. One of the people I follow on Facebook is John David Mann, who worked with Bob Berg on writing, and he also writes fiction. And every day he posts a paragraph from one of his books. And the first couple of times I read it, it kind of baffled me as to what he was doing. Then I realized it's, so it's not just the first, we see a lot, the first paragraph of a book, very first paragraph, how are you starting it? He just kind of randomly picks a paragraph anywhere from the book. And I love it. He creates an image for it. It might now all be totally automated. Who knows? But it is just another way for him to get a little bit of his message out there.
Yes. And that's really what it is. Now, I understand that a lot of people listening, you may be like, ugh, social media just sucks the life.
Yes, especially now.
And, constantly feeding that content beast.
Right.
So I understand that. And I like to remind you that you don't necessarily have to post on social media every single day.
Right.
But what really makes a difference is connecting with your followers.
Right.
Developing relationships with people through the DMs by liking their stuff. And then there's that reciprocation factor. But all of that, begins with you sharing something about yourself.
Right.
And if you're not feeling entirely inspired, pull from your book.
Right. And you're speaking to business professionals. So they might not be posting on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. They darn well better be posting on LinkedIn. And of course, the nice thing about LinkedIn is there's no politics, there's no tariffs, there's no whatever is going on, and so it's you don't feel quite so icky after you've been there, right?
No, it's right, because it's a really boring networking.
Yes, but it's a fabulous networking event for a business professional.
Absolutely. And I am not on TikTok because I can't. I just can't.
Squirrels, right?
I just can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, it's all about LinkedIn as well.
hmm
And LinkedIn is such a great place to
hmm
meet and connect with
Right.
people.
hmm
So if you have things to share that
hmm
are of value
hmm
and those come from your
Right.
book, then you should totally
hmm
be sharing.
hmm Right. And you say the title of your book as the hashtag. Whatever you're doing, and of course the key for all of it is to make people say, tell me more.
Yes. Yes, sister, that's exactly what it is. However, I will
hmm
say that people worry they can give away too much from
Right.
their book,
hmm
but you can't. You can't give away
hmm
too much.
Right.
Because, I mean, I don't work with fiction authors.
hmm
And yes, you could give away too much of your
hmm
fiction book,
Right.
but a
hmm
nonfiction,
hmm
you can't give away too much ever.
Well, and especially when you're just putting snippets, paragraph or two, however you're doing it. And even and you're probably not doing it consecutively. You're not
No,
taking the
right.
first paragraph, then the second paragraph, then the third paragraph. So you're just kind of jumping around with whatever chat GPT told you needed to be doing. And and of course, because of the nature of the beast, I could read something you write today, and next week you could post the exact same thing, and more than likely I'm not going to remember that I already saw it.
Even if you use the same picture,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we're not going to remember.
Right, right. And so, but the thing is, it needs to be consistent, just like with any other marketing. Now, like Melanie said, maybe not every day, once a week, whatever you're going to do, just make sure that you're consistent with doing it. And it is that interaction with other people. This is not a one-way street. You should go in and comment on other people's posts, share other people's information if it makes sense. Don't just randomly start doing this. But yeah, it is truly, I think so many people forget that it's, as you said, it is an online networking place. So, just like if you're at an in-person networking event, you're not going to say, just randomly start saying something. It all has to pertain.
Mm-hmm. And you don't want to be stabbing people with your business cards either.
Yes, or flinging them at them. Yes.
Flinging them at them. Oh
That
gosh,
was just so weird how she did that.
and
I
it
mean,
was,
that's probably 20 years ago, and I obviously still really remember it.
and that's so cliche
Mhm.
too. It's
Right.
that you think
hmm
when you walk into
hmm
a a room like that
hmm
that oh, it's all about finding your
hmm
next client.
Right.
But that's not what it's about.
Never.
It's about making connections
hmm
and establishing relationships.
hmm
This
hmm
morning, I had a coffee meeting with a gentleman who is in a networking group that I'm
hmm
in. And I said, I need to meet you.
hmm
And so we went and we had
hmm
coffee and we talked about almost everything but
Right.
business.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
goal was just
hmm
to get to
hmm
know each other.
Right. It's the know, like, trust.
hmm I mean, there was a while back, I launched a program. It wasn't a
hmm
group program, it was just a course, basically. I
hmm
launched a course
hmm
and I went through all the
hmm
checklist steps. I did the landing page and
hmm
the emails and the this and
hmm
the that and the other thing. And guess how many courses I sold?
Oh no.
Goose egg, zero.
Yikes.
I sold
Hmm
zero
hmm
courses.
And you're a
And
marketing person.
uh-huh.
hmm
But what was missing was the trust.
They were like, who?
They
What?
right, who and
hmm
what.
hmm
And then I went back to the drawing board
hmm
and I started it in a different way.
hmm
And then I launched it again and I sold three.
hmm
And now I have been running it as a group program for
hmm
years.
Oh, I love it.
So it's really about
hmm
building that trust.
hmm
And what better way for people to get to know you than to read
hmm
about
hmm
who you are?
Right. Right. And part of that is then we know you're a real person. You have gone through the things that we might have not experienced ourselves, but we've know somebody, or we can at least feel empathy for you, all of those things. Or we're cheering, right? It's okay for the book to say, hey, this is a great thing. But what are, I think one of the things that people are saying, they still are thinking, why should we? So what tips do you have for authors who want to create that impact, income, and influence?
So in terms of what to put in this book?
Well, yeah. What do they put in it? Why are they even doing it? What are the top tips?
Top tips for, I want to really understand this question. Say it to me again.
Okay. So, what are top tips for new authors, so that they are creating impact, income, and influence?
Got it. Okay. So they've got the book, and now what the heck do they do with it?
What the heck do we do with it?
All
we
right.
know we're supposed to market. We know we're supposed to, but then what?
Okay. So first thing is you want to look at who's in your network.
Okay.
Who in your network needs a copy of this book?
I
want you to send it to them.
Mm-hmm.
If money is an issue, send them a digital copy.
Right.
It doesn't cost you anything to send it over email. Another thing you want to do is get testimonials, book reviews. Get book reviews on Amazon, because that boosts the algorithm.
Yeah, Amazon's algorithm.
Exactly. So focus on those, because then you can repurpose those reviews on your social media. Continually share about your book on social media. Don't ever stop.
Right. Because it's new people, it's people who forgot all of those various things.
Your book is potentially evergreen, so it will always be relevant.
Right.
So always share about it. Just because it's not new anymore doesn't mean that it isn't important. So a lot of authors will have launch trauma because they put everything into the launch of the book. The book takes off like a rocket and then falls in the ocean.
Yeah, because they had all of that publicity
and nothing to back it up for down the road.
Right.
So if you continue to share about your book in your email, on social media, yes, great. Podcasts.
Hello.
Pitch yourself to podcasts. Podcasts, I'm going to lean into my microphone.
Yes.
Are so intimate. I'm talking in your ear right now. You and I are having a very intimate conversation. You are getting to know me. Right. Okay, I'm getting creepy now, so I'll stop.
Well, but the listener is listening in or watching, right?
Right. And when I say you, I mean the listener. You, the listener.
Right.
You are feeling like you're getting to know me because you're seeing me in my natural habitat. You're not reading words that I've posted to your phone. You are seeing me. You're seeing my hands move. You're seeing my facial expressions. Or
I'm hearing your tone of voice.
You're hearing my tone of voice. And, there so much of what we take in is from it's from what we see. Right. It's from it's intuitive. It's expressions. It is nonverbal. So podcasts are another great way. And then there's media opportunities. If you have your you live in a small town. You live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I lived. Well, they're going to care. They, meaning the local outlets, are going to care that a local author is doing great things. And if you say, well, for me, for example, my new book coming out is about why attorneys and law firms should have a book.
Right. So that's a little bit more niche market.
Exactly. So I'm not going to call up my local ABC and be like, you have to have me on because your audience is going to care, because they're not. No. And I'm okay with that. But there are other ways to do it too. Right. So you find local media that really speak to your ideal audience and your ideal reader, and you pitch yourself there.
Right. And I love that you say local. I've shared this story before. I was contacted one time by a lovely woman who wanted me to do the PR for her book. And it was her story of being a breast cancer survivor. Very inspirational, very pink. But a big part of it was how she worked the entire time. I mean, all sorts of things. And so this was back when I lived in Denver. And she said, I want you, and this is long enough ago, she said, I want you to get me on Oprah. I want to be Oprah's book of the month. And I said,
You're like, and $1 million? What else can I get you?
and I'm like, I don't think I'm that good. Now, I didn't tell her that, right?
No.
But I told her, I said, so what local media have you done? Now in Denver at that point in time, we had two newspapers. There were, now they're down to just one, but they had two at that point, plus, like the Denver Business Journal. And then there were several magazine monthly type of publications. There were, counting the PBS stations, there would have been 6 or 8 television stations.
That's a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean, this Denver was a major
market.
And then of course, you've got the Springs, Colorado Springs. I mean, you've got a pretty good concentration of some pretty things. And her response was, I want to be on Oprah. And I said, Oprah's people aren't going to talk to you until you have done a lot of other media. And I said, so we want to do local, and then we want to expand it. Okay. Let's talk to Cheyenne. Let's talk to Phoenix. Let's talk to, and do all of that, kind of the social proof that we talk about. Right.
Absolutely.
And, and she said, I want to be on Oprah. I mean, she just wanted to skip. Right. And so then I thought, okay, here's the way I can do this. I said, so I wave the magic wand and I get you on Oprah. And I'm thinking that'd be a hefty price tag. But and I said, and because you're on Oprah, 35,000 people want to buy your book that day. Can you do that? And she went, oh. And so could she have eventually been on Oprah? Sure. But it's kind of you got to pay your dues first. And local media, as you said, they're looking for things, even in a major market like Atlanta, Denver, Phoenix, they want the local feel good stories. And so, figure out who you need to talk to and pitch them. Now I did media relations when I was in Denver. I mean, that was my job. I did media relations for the American Cancer Society. So I, knew a lot about who to pitch, but pitch the right people. If you have a business book, pitch the business reporter. Don't call the person that has the sports reporter just because you've heard of him. And so it comes back to that marketing plan, right? Know who you want to sell to, know who you want to talk to.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to add one more thing to that.
Of course.
When you do that pitch, remember that it's what's in it for them.
Yes.
And that it's not all about you. Yes, you have a book, but how are you going to serve their listeners, their viewers, their audience, and lead with that?
Right. And I get on average 5 pitches a day for people to be on the podcast. Now we've been doing this a very long time. We're pretty well known, obviously. And, but not to toot my own horn.
No, toot, please toot. I know, we don't toot enough.
Right? Like on our bios, right? And so we get pitched probably at least 5 times a day. The ones, now here's the funny thing. I have hired somebody to pitch me to be on podcasts. And I do this for a living. I pay the first people who get priority are the people who pitch themselves. And I don't know why, I just like that. But when I get a pitch from somebody and they start by saying, oh my gosh, I listened to your interview with Melanie and I thought it was great, especially when she talked about XYZ. Now they might have listened to 5 minutes of the podcast, right? But they at least listened to it. And so I know that they're going to pay a little bit of attention to it. But I have had people pitch us books that are not business related. Okay. How can you make it business related? That's and things like that. And very rarely do we actually completely turn somebody down. But yeah, it is what's in it for me and what's in it for the people who are going to be listening.
Right. When I had a podcast umpteen years ago, it was women business owners talking about trials and tribulations for an audience of women business owners.
Right.
And I would be pitched not infrequently by people who wanted their male client to be on the show. And so I would respond with, this is for women. We
By
only have
women.
women, by women. We only have women on this show.
Right.
And so I knew that they pulled me off of a list and
Yes.
didn't read anything about it.
Right. And it's not hard, folks. There is that thing called Google. And it really is, when I really did media relations, it was a challenge because we really did have to show why we needed to be on their station. And even when I worked for the American Cancer Society, we were giving great information, but we still had to show them why. It was never a gimme that we were gonna appear or be interviewed or whatever.
Exactly. So if you go in with the mindset of serving,
Yes.
which is kind of an overarching theme of today, if you go in with how can I serve?
Yes.
You're going to get so much more out of it,
Right.
both in terms of for yourself, but also opportunities.
Right. And then for heaven's sakes, folks, say thank you. And it's funny. I have to remind myself to do that, right? Because we get busy. We're done with the interview. Well, our phone pinged 18 times and we know we've got 50 emails and yada, yada, yada. Go back and tell them thank you. And especially if it was like major media, because they remember, and so don't make the mistake of thinking they don't care, even if you're just popping them a quick email or a text. Thank you so much. Very honored to be on your program. And so, yeah, it's, our mothers taught us that, right? Say thank you, say please, and say thank you. Because we might think we have the biggest bestseller in the world that has the most important information that everybody needs, but we don't.
Well, we just need to show people why.
Yes. Yeah. And again, it's marketing. Why, what's in it for them. So cool. Well, oh my gosh, Melanie, I looked down and went, oh my God, we only have a couple minutes left. So for people who, we'll have a link to the book and your website in the show notes, but tell us a little bit more about what you do and how do people find you?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So you can find me on my website and on all the social medias. My website is yourbigimpactbook.com.
Cool.
And the way that I work is that I help people go from the writing process through publishing, through promotion of a book. So soup to nuts. And so that you're never left going, I don't know what I don't know, or what do I do now? We have all the answers and we mostly do it for you.
Great. And you've got a ton of really good resources. But if somebody's just thinking, should I? Do I? I'm assuming you have a great conversation with them to tell them, yes, you should. No, you shouldn't.
Absolutely. I have had a couple of conversations this week where I said, nah, you don't want to write a book right now. Yeah. It's the worst thing when it's so sad to me when somebody writes a book and then they never do anything with it because they pivoted careers or what have you. And I've met people like that and it makes me sad. So if you're going to devote the effort and the time and the money and the resources, you might as well do it for something that is going to have that longevity.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny. I wonder, I've got bookshelves of the books that authors have sent me where, we interviewed them. And I wonder, I should do a feature program. Where are they now? Because I do wonder, and the really sad thing is, like I said, we get pitched so much. Sometimes we don't get back with people for a little while and they'll have already moved on. I'm like, but you just pitched us 2 months ago. But yeah, so, but again, this is a great marketing tool for people. And you can find more about it at yourbigimpactbook.com and talk to Melanie. She's going to help you with it.
It would be my honor to help you, at least to guide you into whether this is the right move for you to do for your business.
Right. And she may or may not get you on Oprah.
I'm going to go with no.
I know. Well, of course Oprah doesn't do Oprah anymore, but yeah, I mean, it is about being strategic and thinking things through. I mean, and that's it. Well, Melanie, this really has been so much fun. And hopefully, we generated a lot of people to at least think about, is this a step I should be taking? And so, I encourage people to reach out to you. But do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Absolutely, Deb. Thank you. If writing a book has been on your bucket list or has been sort of nagging at you for a lot of years, but your first thought was, I just don't know how, I would like to help you and give you the answer to how, because you can do it and you are special and unique enough to make it happen.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. Well, I am Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun talking with Melanie Herschorn. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.